Hi everyone, it's Kelsey here, and I have another book review for you today. So, literally last night I just finished up this book called The Dream Lover by Elizabeth Berg, and I really loved this book. I picked it up, and I was really excited to read it, and I got about like 40 or 50 pages into it, and it kind of got pushed to the wayside, but I knew that I still wanted to read it, so I picked it back up, and oh my gosh, I just raced through it. And this is definitely one of those books that it almost forces you to take your time. Just like the writing style and the content makes you want to take your time, but I still ended up going through this one pretty quick. I just really enjoyed it. So, The Dream Lover is about the author George Sand, who is actually a woman, and she lives in France. This is a historical novel, so the 1800s, like 1830 to 1870, I think is about the time period. But basically, it's about the novelist George Sand and just about her life, and she broke a lot of barriers in her time. It flashes back and forth between her childhood and her like where she's at currently as an adult, and you start out the story and you learn about her childhood, and then you also learn where she is now in her mid-20s, and she has actually left her husband at a time when you didn't really leave your husband. Divorce had been declared illegal by Napoleon at that time, and even if she had been able to obtain a divorce, the property and the inheritance that she had been left by her grandmother would belong to her husband, even though he had brought none of it to the marriage. So it's really talks about her separation and how she handles it with this husband who she doesn't love, and he doesn't love her, and their marriage is just bad, and they've got 2 kids, and kind of how it goes back and forth with that. And she spends part of her time at her country estate where her children and husband live, and then she spends part of the year in Paris, where she's created this beautiful life for herself, full of friends and cool people and culture and art, and she's writing every single night, and she travels around some, and it's just a phenomenal book if you love historical fiction, like I definitely do. And I think historical fiction is definitely more interesting when it's about a real person, not just a fictionalized person in real events. So even though I've never read any of George Sand's books, and I didn't really know anything about her, I just love historical fiction, and I thought it was just really cool that this is like a real person, this is her real life, and it was interesting to read about all the barriers that she wrote about and she talked about. She believed in social equality, even though she had inherited money and she was this wealthy woman, or somewhat wealthy woman. She ends up supporting herself through her writing, which is a really cool concept, just in general, through any period of time. So she supports herself from her writing, but then also she uses her writing to talk about the differences between men and women, and how women should be built up more, and how men can just take advantage of them, and women are too self-sacrificing, and they serve their husbands too much. And she talks about how the classes need to be more equal, and she actually spent a great deal of her life dressing as a man. She had both male lovers and female lovers at the time, and she was still married to her husband, so even though he had cheated and she was technically cheating, even though they were separated, it was just really interesting circumstances and a very interesting life that she led. So there's a ton of details and some scandalous ideas and thoughts for the time that she went through, but overall I really loved The Dream Lover. I gave it 5 stars out of 5. That's kind of rare for me, but I really loved the writing. The pace was very good. The author, Elizabeth Berg, took some real passages and letters from George Sand and put them into the book, so that was like an interesting mix. And I just felt like it gave her a really good portrayal of this really fascinating woman that I really didn't know much about. One of the most interesting things I found is that I love piano. I used to play as a child, and I just find piano music to be really, really pretty and beautiful. And so if you know anything about music, you've probably heard of Chopin, and she actually knew Chopin in real life, and he was a really important figure to her later in her life. So I thought that was really interesting. So I never knew about that before. And I wish, as much as I love the historical novels about females, I wish there were a few more about males. I would love to read more about a lot of the famous music people in historical fiction, such as Chopin, Mozart, Beethoven. There are a few books out there that are historical fiction, but not as many as I would like. And so many of them tell a story from the perspective of a sister or a mother or a wife. But yeah, I really like this one. Definitely give it a shot, especially if you like historical fiction. So yeah, I would definitely highly, highly recommend this book. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. If you've read this book, please leave me a comment, because I would love to discuss it with someone. Nobody I know likes historical fiction, which I'm like, why? I love it. Anyway, so if you love historical fiction and if you've read this book, hit me up in the comment section below. Or if you've read a good book recently and you think I would like it, let me know, and I would love to check it out. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this book review, and I will see you guys again soon. Have a great day, everyone.